Hey, y'all, it's Macy. And welcome to Spooky Stories and Soft Pillows. Today I'll be sharing with you The Last Night at Hollow Creek. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and get comfy, because we're about to dive in. The sun had already dipped below the ridge by the time 19-year-old Erin Lark stepped out of the small cabin she and her friends had rented for the weekend. Tucked deep into the woods of Hollow Creek, a speck of a town in the shadow of the Willamette National Forest, the cabin had no Wi-Fi, barely any cell service, and was 2 full miles from the nearest paved road. It was meant to be the perfect place to disconnect. Erin zipped up her hoodie against the early autumn chill, the air crisp with pine and the distant tang of campfire smoke. She was heading toward the lake, or at least that's what she told her friends when she grabbed a flashlight and said, "I just need a minute." She never came back. By Monday morning, the Lane County Sheriff's Office had officially listed Erin Lark as a missing person. Her friends, Jess Calder, Noah Trent, and Maya Klein, gave similar accounts. She left around 9:15 p.m. Saturday night, flashlight in hand, heading down the trail toward Hollow Lake. No one followed her. No one thought much of it. "She does this," Jess had said during the initial questioning. "Goes off by herself when she's stressed. We thought she just needed to breathe." But Erin didn't take her phone, or her keys, or her shoes. She was still wearing a pair of thin white canvas sneakers, unsuitable for hiking. There was no note, no indication of where she planned to go or how long she'd be gone. The trail to the lake was steep, narrow, and rooted over, and as authorities soon discovered, completely empty. No disturbed brush, no broken branches, no signs of a fall. The flashlight was never recovered. Deputy Cheryl Montrose was the first to respond. A 17-year veteran of the Lane County Sheriff's Department, she was no stranger to lost hikers. But Erin's case felt different from the moment she stepped onto the property. There was no panic in the air, she later told the press. It wasn't like the others. The friends, they weren't freaking out. Not really. According to Maya, they waited until nearly midnight before they tried to call Erin's phone. It went straight to voicemail. They searched the trails themselves with flashlights for about 20 minutes before deciding to drive into town to get help. But the only vehicle they had, Noah's, had a dead battery. They were stuck there until morning, Deputy Montrose said. By the time they reached the ranger station, she'd already been missing for almost 10 hours. A full search and rescue effort began the next afternoon. Bloodhounds, helicopters, even drones. Over 60 volunteers combed the area around the cabin and the lake. Not a single footprint, clothing item, or personal effect was ever found. It was like she had simply evaporated. Born in 1998 in Corvallis, Oregon, Erin Lark was an only child. Her parents, Paul and Dana Lark, were divorced. Erin had been living with her mother in Eugene while attending Lane Community College, where she was pursuing a degree in environmental science. She wasn't the type to run off, Dana insisted during the first press conference. She'd call. She always called. Erin had no history of mental illness, drug use, or legal trouble. She didn't drink much and she didn't do drama. In high school, she had been known as a little quiet but a total sweetheart, according to one teacher. She wasn't dating anyone seriously. Her last relationship had ended in the spring. No major fallout. Police found no signs of a stalker, no known enemies. Nothing suspicious in her bank account, text messages, or online activity. Her last social media post, a photo of the woods surrounding the cabin, captioned "Reset," was uploaded at 6:43 p.m. on the night she disappeared. The rental property, known locally as Cabin 12, was managed by a private host on a travel site. The group had booked it for a long weekend, a kind of low-budget reunion from their first year of college. They'd all met at a freshman orientation event and had stayed loosely connected ever since. Cabin 12 had a reputation in the area. It sat just off an old forest road, surrounded by dense trees and steep ridgelines. Locals called the nearby stretch of woods Widow's Hollow, a place long tied to whispered folklore. Missing trappers in the 1800s, mysterious fires, a vanished logging camp from the 1930s. But no one took that seriously, at least not until Erin went missing. The first break in the case, or rather the first red flag, came 5 days later when Deputy Montrose interviewed the group again separately. Their timelines were mostly consistent, but one thing stood out. Noah Trent said he saw Erin leave the cabin wearing a red hoodie. But that hoodie, a distinctive one with faded Portland State lettering on the front, was found folded neatly on her bed. So if she wasn't wearing it, what was she wearing? No one could say for sure. She might have had another jacket, Jess offered. I don't really remember. Investigators began to suspect that Erin may not have left voluntarily at all. As news of Erin's disappearance spread, online forums and amateur sleuths descended on the case. Reddit threads popped up speculating everything from foul play to cult activity. Some pointed to a 2002 case, Rachel Dempsey, age 22, who vanished while hiking solo just 15 miles south of Hollow Creek. Her body was never recovered. Others fixated on a possible serial predator. Was there someone hiding in the woods, waiting for girls like Erin to wander off alone? But perhaps the most chilling rumor came from a local, a logger named Hank Gillespie, who claimed to have worked near the area years earlier. They say that part of the forest eats people, he told a local radio show. You can hear things sometimes, like talking that doesn't make sense. Then it stops, and you're alone again. No one took him seriously, not yet. By October 1st, the official search had been scaled back. Erin Lark was now classified as an inactive missing persons case, meaning all leads had been exhausted. Her mother, Dana, refused to give up. She launched a website, offered a $10,000 reward, and hired a private investigator named Roland Vexler, a former Portland PD detective with a reputation for chasing ghosts. I don't believe she just wandered off, Vexler told reporters. Someone saw something, or someone's hiding something. When asked who he suspected, he said only, "I don't trust the timeline." Not one bit. The last night at Hollow Creek Part 2, the Tracker's Path. Roland Vexler didn't look like a typical investigator. He was heavy-set, mid-50s, with salt and pepper stubble, and a nose that had clearly been broken once or twice. His office was in a second-story walk-up above a pawn shop in southeast Portland, decorated with yellowed maps and half-empty folders. But his instincts were sharp, and more than one missing persons case had resurfaced because of him. "I start by assuming everyone is lying," he told Dana Lark the day she hired him. "Then I work backwards to figure out who's just confused and who's covering their ass." His first move was to return to the cabin, alone. On October 5th, Vexler made the trip out to Hollow Creek. He brought no team, no dogs, just a satchel with Erin's photo, a topographic map, and a flask of bitter black coffee. The place was already growing colder, leaves turning, the sun thinner in the sky. He walked the trail to the lake in full daylight. But even then, he noticed something most others had missed. No boot prints, not even old ones. The soil was soft, pine-needled, damp enough to hold a tread mark for days. Yet the entire trail was clean. Too clean. Either the search team cleared it up somehow, he noted in his recorder, or she never made it down here. Vexler followed the trail to the lake and paused near the waterline. Then he saw something strange. About 10 yards past the trail's end, hidden behind a thick cluster of brush, was a second trail. One that hadn't been cleared or marked on any of the rangers' maps. Narrow, overgrown, but there. Vexler followed it for just under a quarter mile. At the end of the path stood a cluster of stone ruins. Not natural. Not ancient either. It looked like the remains of a fire pit surrounded by low, crumbling walls, as if a small building had once stood there. No one had mentioned this in any of the official reports. He took photographs. Then he found something more chilling. Tucked between the rocks, a scrap of cloth, faded blue, torn at the edge. When he held it up, he recognized it from the photo Dana had given him. Erin's shirt. She had been wearing a blue Henley under the hoodie. The scrap was damp, but not mildewed. He bagged it carefully. Someone had tried to hide it. Back in Eugene, Vexler began re-interviewing the three friends. He started with Maya Klein. She was cooperative but hesitant, kept her arms folded tight. Vexler took notes quietly. Vexler, did you ever leave the cabin that night after Erin walked out? Maya, number. We waited. Then Noah tried to go look, but it was too dark. Vexler, are you sure she was going to the lake? Maya, that's what she said. He waited a beat, then asked, Vexler, did she say why? Maya hesitated, looked down. Maya, number. I think she was mad at Jess. They had been arguing earlier. That hadn't been in the original police reports. Jess had always been the wild card in the group. She dyed her hair frequently, blue at the time of questioning, wore combat boots, and had a history of minor shoplifting charges. Vexler wasn't surprised to learn she'd been the one to suggest the trip in the first place. Vexler, Maya says you and Erin were arguing? Jess, we were just talking, loudly. Vexler, about what? Jess. Noah. According to Jess, Erin had confided in her that she suspected Maya and Noah had hooked up behind her back, not because they were dating, but because she hated being lied to. She didn't care about the sex, Jess said. She cared about the betrayal. She always took things personally. Jess also claimed that Erin had been weirdly quiet the whole day before she vanished. She kept staring into the woods, Jess said, like she was hearing something. The final interview was with Noah, who had since returned to Portland. He was the only one who refused to meet in person. Vexler caught him by phone. Noah stuck to his story. Erin went out. They waited. Nothing else happened. Vexler, did you hook up with Maya? Noah, what? Number Vexler. Erin thought you did. Noah, well, she was wrong. Vexler, you sure about that? There was a pause. Noah, that's not what this is about. Vexler noted the tension. Something wasn't right. The most unexpected development came when Dana Lark remembered something Erin had left behind. A digital voice recorder she used for journaling. It had been sitting untouched in her desk drawer since she left. When Vexler popped in fresh batteries and played the last entry, he froze. The date stamp, September 16th, 2017, 8:51 p.m. Just under 25 minutes before she disappeared. Recorder static, then Erin's voice. They keep pretending nothing happened. That's what's driving me crazy. We were all there and they just act like it's normal. Like it didn't happen in the first place. Long pause. I need to get out of this place. I need air. Maybe if I walk down to the lake, I'll clear my head. There was no explanation of what had happened, but she sounded scared. Vexler dug deeper into local history. The term Widow's Hollow had shown up in dozens of local legends, but one story in particular stood out. In 1938, a logging camp called Staghorn Ridge operated briefly near the same location as Cabin 12. That winter, the entire camp was evacuated due to a string of disappearances. 3 men who went out to scout the tree line and were never seen again. The camp foreman's report, buried in county archives, read, "The trees here are strange. Echoes in places where there should be none. I don't believe this area is safe for work. My men have started hearing voices. I think the woods are cursed." Just old folklore, or was there something more? On October 9th, Vexler returned to the site, this time with a photographer and a drone operator. They documented the secondary trail, the stone ruins, and the area around it. Nothing new turned up. But that night, after the drone footage was uploaded, the technician called Vexler with a strange observation. There's a shape in one of the stills, behind the trees, left side of the frame. It's blurry, but it looks like someone's standing there, watching. The photo showed a vague outline. Humanoid. Tall. But the timestamp? 8:57 p.m. The exact time Erin would have been walking that same trail. The still frame from the drone footage quickly became the centerpiece of Wexler's investigation. Though the image was grainy, there was no mistaking the shape. A tall figure facing the camera, partly obscured by the trees. The still was captured from about 300 feet in the air, taken at 8:57 p.m. facing northwest, in the same direction as the hidden ruins. Wexler enlarged the image. No distinct features, no face, but it wasn't a tree. The shoulders were too square. The posture was too human. He sent the image to the Lane County Sheriff's Office. They responded with a polite brush-off. Could be a shadow, could be a trick of the light. Without more detail, it's not evidence. But Wexler had seen enough. Someone had been there that night. The only question was, who? 10 days after Erin's disappearance, September 26, 2017, Paul Lark, Erin's father, received a voicemail. He didn't hear it until much later, claiming he had ignored his phone for days due to the media attention. But when he finally played the message, he nearly dropped the phone. The voicemail was 12 seconds long. It had no caller ID. It was traced to a prepaid burner phone. Unregistered. The audio was filled with static. But underneath it, a single voice, hoarse, whispering, ragged, said 3 words. Don't trust them. Then a click. Paul sent the audio to Dana, who forwarded it to Wexler. He hired a forensics expert to isolate the voice and run a spectral comparison. Result, 88% match with Erin Lark. The voicemail changed everything. Now, instead of just being missing, Erin was possibly alive and possibly being held against her will. Wexler pushed the Lane County Sheriff's Department to reopen the case. They refused. Without a physical body, a weapon, or new location, they claimed there was still no evidence of foul play. Frustrated, Dana held a new press conference and released the voicemail to the public. Within 48 hours, the story hit national media. Reddit sleuths pounced. A new theory emerged, that one or more of the friends had deliberately misled investigators, and that Erin had tried to escape after witnessing something horrible. The internet focused first on Noah Trent. He had been the last one to see Erin, was vague in his interviews, and, it turned out, had deleted several messages from his phone the night Erin vanished. When asked why, he said, they were personal. She was upset. I didn't want people misreading it. But forensic software recovered a partial thread of deleted texts. Erin, just tell me the truth. Noah, it wasn't like that. We were drunk. Erin, you both lied to me. I don't even know who I'm looking at anymore. Investigators suspected she was referring to Noah and Maya, so why had they all gone on a cabin trip together? To make peace, Jess would later say, to clear the air. But peace didn't come. 2 weeks later, a hiker reported something strange in a dry ravine just north of Hollow Lake. A shirt, tattered, half buried beneath a pile of pine needles. It matched the one Erin had been wearing, confirmed by her mother, and a fabric match to the scrap Wexler had found weeks earlier. What disturbed the hiker most was the way it had been cut. Not torn, not ripped. Cleanly sliced down the side. Nearby, investigators found something else. A half-burned notebook page, partially legible. The writing wasn't conclusively Erin's, but Dana swore it was hers. The words were fragmentary. Can't trust them, watching. I can hear it breathing sometimes. Talks when no one else does. Then, I'm not alone. Driven by what he now considered a cover-up, Wexler returned to county archives to dig deeper into the Widow's Hollow region. There, he discovered a file labeled Widow 14, a restricted report from 1994. The document referenced a missing teen named Hannah Maris, age 17, who vanished during a solo camping trip not far from the same ridge. Details were eerily familiar. Disappeared near Hollow Lake. No sign of struggle. Final journal entry. I don't feel alone here. What Vexler found most disturbing was that the sheriff's department had never publicly released the case. It had been quietly archived, marked psych eval requested, and closed without further explanation. That made two girls, same location, same vanishing, and no real investigation in either case. With new evidence and rising media attention, Lane County finally reopened the case, though unofficially. Sheriff Griggs, under increasing pressure, assigned a single detective, Elena Rhodes, to liaise with Vexler and review the new materials. But Rhodes wasn't convinced it was foul play. "This isn't a kidnapping," she told Vexler. "No ransom, no communication, no demands. If she's alive, she doesn't want to be found. Or can't be." Vexler disagreed. She left behind every survival resource she had. If she's still alive, it's because someone's keeping her that way. Rhodes countered, "Or something." They both let the word hang. One final piece came from an unexpected source. A retired forest warden named Luther Bain, who had worked in the Hollow Creek area from 1985 to 2003. Bain had been following the news and reached out to Vexler in October. They met in a diner just outside Springfield. "That forest is wrong," Bain said. "There's a spot. East of the lake, past the old trail. Compasses spin, radios die. I stopped going out there after 98. Vexler asked him if he'd ever seen anyone, or anything, in the woods. Bain didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Saw a girl once. Thought it was a camper, but she moved too fast. Didn't blink. She just walked into the trees like she didn't care what was behind them. That wasn't any camper I knew." He paused. "Now I wonder if it was Erin, or someone else." Absolutely, here's part 5, where the story begins its final descent into truth, memory, and something darker than anyone expected. After his final visit to the clearing, Roland Vexler returned to Eugene disturbed and strangely obsessed. That night, he combed over every piece of evidence again. Voice recordings, drone images, journal fragments. At 3:41 a.m., he found something he'd missed. A line of numbers in Erin's journal, scribbled vertically in the margins. 44.1275 degrees north, 122.7430 degrees west. It was a set of coordinates. Plugging them into a map revealed a location 2.7 miles northeast of the cabin, past a section of forest marked as inaccessible, steep ridges, no trails. According to a 1976 survey map, there had once been a fire watch station there. It had burned down in 1989. No one had gone there in years. Vexler and Detective Rhodes hiked to the coordinates together on November 12, 2017. The climb took nearly 5 hours. At the top, surrounded by collapsed timber and moss-covered beams, they found the remains of the watch station's foundation. And nearby, tucked in a rotting ammo crate, a small metal canister sealed with wax. Inside, they discovered a single item, a Super 8 film reel. Vexler had it digitized. The footage, dated July 18, 1982, showed a group of 4 men in forestry gear. They were filming each other laughing, drinking beer. Then the camera tilted. Someone called out, "Hey, did you see that?" The last 10 seconds were jerky, frantic. Pine trees, darkness. One of the men screamed. Then the film burned out. Rhodes returned to Lane County with the reel. That same day, Vexler received a manila envelope with no return address. Inside was a single typed page. At the top, the hollow one. The page read like folklore, a mixture of cryptic warnings and ritualistic symbols. It described a presence that speaks in echoes and wears the voices of the missing. It warned, it comes when you lie. It feeds on guilt. It lives between what you did and what you should have done. Vexler's breath caught because someone, or something, knew the exact theme that had haunted Erin's friends since the night she vanished. And they were no longer sure what was real. On November 15th, Jess Calder, now under psychiatric care, agreed to one final interview with Vexler under supervision. She described what really happened. Erin followed something into the woods. I think it started with the voices. She said she could hear her father's voice. Said it was calling to her even though he wasn't there. We should have gone after her right then. But Noah, he was scared. Said she'd come back, that it wasn't our fault. Then Jess admitted the hardest part. She did come back. Just after 4 a.m., we saw her near the tree line. She was whispering something, but she wasn't right. So we ran. Erin Lark's final journal entry, dated the day she vanished, had been missed at the bottom of her camera bag. Dana, cleaning out her garage, found it wedged behind an old battery pack. It read, "I think it's real. I think there's something here. Maybe it's always been here. It doesn't want to kill us. It wants to show us what we are." Then, scrawled in a rush, "I'm not lost. They are. But maybe they'll see me again if I stay quiet enough, if I forget enough. Then, I'll become the echo. The whisper. That's how it survives." On December 1st, 2017, Lane County formally closed the Erin Lark case again. The official finding: presumed deceased, cause undetermined. Her body was never recovered. Vexler published his documentary Hollow Creek, The Disappearance of Erin Lark, in early 2018. It was met with acclaim and controversy. Some praised its depth and emotion. Others criticized its inclusion of folklore, symbols, and what they called supernatural nonsense. But what stayed with viewers was the final scene. A shot of the woods, perfectly still, as Vexler reads from Erin's journal. Then, for just a second, the faintest voice, barely audible. "I see you." 7 years later, the forest is still there, unchanged, untouched. Occasionally, hikers go missing near Hollow Lake, though not often enough to draw headlines. Those who return sometimes speak of dreams, whispers, or echoes that sound like their own voices. Dana Lark never moved away. She still hikes the trail to the ridge once a year on the anniversary of Erin's disappearance. She says she can still feel her daughter. Sometimes when the wind shifts, she hears someone walking just behind her. When she turns, no one's there, but she never runs. Because sometimes the forest doesn't want you to run, it just wants you to remember. The end, hey. If you made it to the end, it really means a lot. If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video to let me know you want more like it. Leave a comment and tell me what you'd like me to cover next.